Hello, today I'm going to talk to you about crocking. If you haven't heard of it, you may well have experienced it, especially if you've worked with any yarn that's in quite a strong, deep colour. So crocking is the phenomenon when dye gets knocked off of the yarn from the physical action of knitting or crocheting. So it's happening because of friction, and it just has this like dry rub off. So you may well have seen that before when you've been working with a yarn, that your hands get some of the colour transferred onto them. So this is definitely something that happens with some of our yarns, and we know that some of you find it a bit worrying because you think that, oh no, it's rubbing off on my hands, therefore when I block or wash my project it's going to bleed, or it's going to transfer onto other parts of the project, especially in like colour work. Maybe you've got a dark colour with a very light one and you're worried about the colour transferring. So I just wanted to make this video today to show you that that's not going to happen. You can rest assured with river knits yarns, if you get a little bit of dry crocking where it's rubbing off on your hands, that does not mean that you're going to have any issue with washing the project or any issue with wearing the project either, because it's literally that quite high friction of working with the yarn that causes the colour to transfer to your hands. Okay, so I've knitted up a sample. Actually, first of all, I'll talk about the yarn. So this is one of our mini skein colours. It's very popular. We do it in full-size skeins as well. It's the Shadow Turquoise mini skein. It's got a lot of turquoise dye in it, and that's basically the biggest culprit out of the dyes that we use. This turquoise dye, it has a very large size molecule, so it finds it harder to find a good bonding site in the fibre during the dye process, and it's more easily knocked off with that physical rubbing when you're working with the yarn. However, it's perfectly fine to use. Your hands, the dye should just come off with normal soap and water, and you shouldn't have any problems with your project. So to demonstrate this, I knitted a sock. So the sock is designed by Mana Gilligan. It's a cat sock. I think this one's called Cat Garden. You can see these cute little cat heads. So I've used a different blue for the heel and the cuff and in the toe, but in the main body of the sock I've used the Shadow Turquoise colour, and I've used an undyed yarn as the background. So the most risky high contrast combination that I could come up with, also one that looks good for the colour work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to block the sock and show to you that although this turquoise transferred to my hands a little bit while I was knitting it, it's not going to cause me any problems from this point onwards, all right? So let's start the blocking process. Now, all of our yarns have instructions on the label about how to treat the yarn. So you should be blocking your projects in lukewarm water, so no more than 40 degrees, but 30 is preferable. You can use a little bit of wool wash, or you can not use wool wash, depending on your preference. It really doesn't matter. And yeah, if a little bit of colour comes out in the water, that's fine. Probably a little bit of excess dye. I have to say that our yarns are thoroughly rinsed. Well, the dye is thoroughly set and then they're thoroughly rinsed. Differences in water hardness and softness around the country and around the world will always affect things a little bit. So a little bit of colour coming out in your water, it's absolutely fine, because if you keep the temperature low, it won't be hot enough for the dye, if any does detach itself, it won't be hot enough for any of that dye to fix onto any other part of your project. Okay, so I'm going to prepare my rinse bath. I've got a boiled kettle here, so I'll put a little bit of boiling water in, and then I'm going to use cold water from the tap to get to the right temperature. Annoyingly, I can't find my thermometer, so I'm having to do this by feel, and you're just going to have to take my word for it. Yeah, so that feels just warm, not hot.
Hand warm.
Hand warm, okay. And I've got a little bit of wool wash. This is the Sheer Delight wool wash that we have in our shop. It smells amazing, and yeah, it's just really easy to use. Okay, so that's way more water than I need for a sock, but I'll show you anyway. All right, so I'm just going to pop my sock in there, let it soak. We'll see if we get any colour coming out of the sock. Hopefully there won't be any, because we are really careful with rinsing when we dye these yarns. Okay, so you don't want to be agitating your work when it's in the warm water, because we don't want to felt this. But I think you can see the water is still completely clear.
Yep.
All right, so normally you'd leave that for about 15 minutes, so I think I'm going to...
10-15 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to refill my kettle, have a cup of tea, and then I'll be back to show you the...
Are you making me one as well?
Yeah, go on now, I'll make you one as well.
Okay, thank you. That was quick.
Now I've made a lovely cup of tea. It's just Builder's Brew, in case anybody asks me. Marcus has got Earl Grey though, he's a bit fancier than me. Right, so my sock has been soaking in the little rinse bath. As you can see, the water is still completely clear. I'm actually a little bit surprised. I thought that we'd have a little bit of turquoise in there, but there's just none. Well, brilliant. Okay, so we'll just finish off then. So if you're at home and you don't have the benefit of a spin dryer like we have here in the studio, then the best thing to do at this point is to take it out very gently, gently squeeze some of the water out, and then roll it up in a towel and jump on it to squeeze out the excess water without agitating the wool. I've got a spin dryer, so I'm going to use that because it also will get out the excess water without agitating the project, but also you'll be able to see the rinse water coming out of the spin dryer, and we'll see if there's any colour at all. So let's do this without dripping it in my lovely cup of tea. So just very gently, just squeezing some of that out now. So you can have a look at the rinse bath. It's clear. Here's my sock, just so you can see before it goes for a spin, none of the colour has transferred to the undyed. Alright. Yeah, I'll pop that in now.
Put it in there.
Hello, little sock. Right, so that's exactly what we wanted to see, is that the water actually ran clear. So like I said, if there's a little bit of colour in the water, that's really not an issue. As long as you've done everything at that lukewarm temperature, it won't be hot enough for any loose dye to stick to any other part of your project. So yeah, here we have happy little sock. I would go and put this on a sock blocker now, if I was so inclined. But yeah, so colour transferring to your hands while knitting or crocheting, especially with turquoise, if it's from us, is not something to panic about. Obviously, if you are worried, get in touch, but follow these steps first and should all be fine. Okay, thanks a lot.